Okay, so we've all heard the buzzwords, right? The metaverse, billion-dollar valuations, these absolutely wild predictions. But what does it all really mean for us, for our future? I mean, is this really the next chapter of how we interact? Or is it just smoke and mirrors? Well, let's dive in and try to separate that digital dream from the digital bubble.
And yeah, that's really the core question, isn't it? It's this massive tension between, on one hand, a universe of digital promise, and on the other, the very, very real risk of a bubble that's just built on pure hype. You've got this vision of a new immersive internet versus a potential cautionary tale for anyone with money on the line.
So, get this. At the absolute peak of the frenzy, a single plot of virtual land sold for over $4 million. I'm going to say that again. $4 million. For what? Pixels on a screen. Now, I know that sounds completely insane, right? But to even begin to understand that price tag, we have to first understand the world that this land actually exists in. Okay, so what exactly is the metaverse? To get the land, you've got to get the world it's in. See, this isn't about just browsing websites or scrolling through your feed like we do now. The whole idea is that you're stepping inside them. You're actually entering these experiences.
All right, here's the official sounding definition. But the word I really want you to focus on, the key word here is persistent. This is absolutely crucial. Unlike a video game lobby that just kind of resets every time you leave, the metaverse is always on. It just keeps going and evolving, almost like a real city, even when you've logged off for the night.
So when you break it down, these are the key characteristics that make this whole thing tick. First, it's persistent. It's always on. Second, it's immersive. You're in it, not just looking at it. Third, it's social. You're interacting with other people's avatars. And finally, and this is a big one, digital ownership. You can actually own things. And it's that combination, all four of those things working together, that creates something totally new. This is way beyond just a game or a simple chat room. Now, this is a super important point to get. There isn't one single metaverse. It's not one place controlled by one company. A much better way to think about it is like the internet itself. You've got all these different virtual worlds. Some are for gaming, some are for hanging out, some might even be for work. But they're all part of this one big connected idea. Just like there are millions of websites, but only one internet. All right, section 2, the digital land rush. And this is where things get really fascinating and honestly pretty controversial. We're talking about owning a piece of this virtual world. Yep, digital land.
So what are we even talking about here? Well, the easiest way to think of it is like a digital deed to a property. The NFT is basically the proof that you own a specific set of coordinates in a virtual world, and that ownership is locked in and recorded on a blockchain for everyone to see. Okay, cool, but what can you actually do with it?
Well, turns out quite a lot. This isn't just about passively owning something. It's a platform. You can build on it, create virtual storefronts, crazy experiences, even entire games. You can host events like concerts or art shows. And you can try to monetize it, rent the space out, run ads, or just flip the land for a profit. It's a lot like the real world, where your property is the foundation for whatever you want to create. So why did the prices just go absolutely bananas? Well, it was kind of the perfect storm. You had platforms creating artificial scarcity, saying, hey, there are only so many plots of land. Then you had a tidal wave of speculation, investors just pouring money in, betting it would be the next big thing. Add to that the actual potential to make money from it, plus the social status of owning prime real estate, and boom, you've got yourself a full-blown digital gold rush. Okay, hype versus reality. Because after all those million-dollar headlines and all the excitement, well, the reality on the virtual grounds started to look, let's just say, a little bit different. Right, so the hype was this vision of a new internet, right? Bustling digital cities, billions of users flocking in. But the reality? For a lot of these platforms, it was more like thousands of users, not millions. Basically a ghost town. And, just like in the real world, a beautiful building in the middle of an empty city isn't really worth a whole lot. You need people. And then there was the hype about limitless utility, the promise that every single plot of land would host some thriving business or cool game. The reality? A lot of these plots just sat empty. Building something cool takes time and skill and money. It turns out it's way easier to speculate on land than it is to actually develop it. The content just couldn't keep up with the hype. And this quote really nails it. Many early buyers are hoping for resale profits, not utility.
And that's the whole story right there. The market, for the most part, wasn't driven by people who wanted to build amazing things. It was driven by people who wanted to flip a digital asset for a quick buck. And that, my friends, is the classic recipe for a speculative bubble.
Okay, so this brings us to some big challenges and open questions. And we're not just talking about a simple market correction here. There are some really fundamental structural problems that have to be solved if this grand vision is ever going to work. You could say we're building on some pretty unstable ground. And maybe the biggest challenge of all, interoperability. I mean, just think about it like this. Imagine you buy a brand new car, but you can only drive it in your own city. You can't take it anywhere else. That's basically the metaverse today. It's a bunch of isolated islands. Your avatar, your items, your land, it's all trapped inside one company's walled garden. And the hurdles just keep coming. I mean, seriously, how do you even put a real-world value on digital pixels? What happens to your land if the company that runs the platform goes out of business? It just disappears. Then you have all the legal questions. Is it property? Is it a security? And we haven't even touched on the massive risk of hacks and scams. Look, these aren't small details. They are huge foundational problems. So with all these challenges, you might be thinking, okay, so the dream is dead, right? Well, not exactly. What's happening is a shift, a really necessary one. The focus is finally moving away from just pure crazy speculation and towards something much more important, real, tangible utility. You can kind of see the evolution happening in phases. Phase 1 was that peak hype, the pure speculation. We're now in phase 2, which is all about experimentation and community building. People are actually trying to figure out what works. And the hope, the goal, is to get to phase 3, a future built on real utility and hopefully that interoperability we talked about. So what does that utility actually look like? Well, we're talking about things like virtual workplaces for training, immersive concert venues that feel real, totally new ways to do education, or even complex economies inside of massive games. In that future, the value of your digital land isn't just because it's rare, it's valuable because of what's happening on it. The grand vision here, what this is all building towards, is a parallel digital economy. It's a future where our virtual lives and our physical lives, our economies, our friendships, they all become deeply and seamlessly intertwined. It's a world where your digital stuff is just as important as your physical stuff. So that brings us back to the big question. Is digital land the foundation for our future, or is it just going to be history's most expensive and kind of weird experiment? Honestly, that is the multi-trillion-dollar question, and the next decade is probably going to give us the answer. But what's for sure is that this massive, messy, and totally fascinating experiment is forcing us to rethink everything, what ownership means, what community means, and what value even is in our digital age.